Hey everybody, so Fat Man from Holler. I see a lot of people on YouTube doing their thing, but if you like my videos, hit like and subscribe. Ring that bell for future notifications. I want to show you a little bit of prep work on how to use spray paint to spray bomb a vehicle. Just a terminology a lot of people use. So you have your surface, and what you want to do, as you see, you can sand by hand or orbital DA, and you kind of want to work your surface because you can see different spots where, like right here where the paint is peeled because it wasn't sanded very well from the gray that I put on. And this is what you do. If you have a pressure washer, you can pressure wash a lot of your dirt off. And if you're doing a really high expensive paint job, usually a lot of people will use a pressure washer to get the surface of the metal clean very well. And I'll take an air chuck and I'll blow blow it completely dry till once the majority of it's dry, then I'll come back with a tack rag and wipe it down so there's nothing going to be inside of the primer when it's applied. And depending on the primer that is used is another thing. If you're using enamel, enamel's pretty universal, but if you're using a lacquer-based primer, enamel will not bond with enamel. So what it will do is when you use lacquer, it will cause lifting. And this is something I'm passionate about. This is just an old farm truck, and I'm not putting a lot of effort into this. I'm just kind of making it all black because I had a little bit of artwork, as you've seen in other videos I painted on here. I painted Sonic and different things, and I like to do a lot of hand sanding per se, because even with a DA, it'll be faster, but sometimes when you're doing good prep work, it's not about how fast you can go, it's about how accurate you can go about achieving what you're trying to do. And as you're sanding, you see all the dust and stuff from the primer and dirt and impurities. And I'll usually have a towel, an old towel, so I'll wipe everything off just to get everything out of my way so I can continue sanding. And then you can see like the rock chip just right here, rock chip right here, rock chip right here. You see a rock chip right here. And the way I usually work a rock chip is I'll feather edge it like this. Where I'm trying not to really eat into the primer much, and it takes a little bit of effort. And on Chevrolet C1500, you have this body line in the hood that you really got to pay close attention to. And on the front, you can sand the lip of the hood, and if you flip the hood up, you can hit the jam of it. And jamming really makes a paint job, even if it's spray bomb, look very professional, because the jam makes up a lot of it when you open it up in the two different colors. You know, it kind of takes away from what's going on. But I pretty much have this just spot prepped, and then with the sandpaper, sometimes doing the body lines like this, you can take it like this and work it that way to where you can get in there really good, because you want to really want to have the surface good as you can get it to where the paint will bond properly. And then come back with your towel or whatever, wipe it down, or air chuck to blow it off. And then here's the second thing. Personally, preference, I like this kind of paint. Usually just about anywhere you go, it's going to be about $5 to $6, maybe even $7 a can. And the key ingredient is, most people spray bomb don't understand, when you have it, you got to shake it up, because when you can't hear the paint, it's tight, and as you can hear the sound of the marble inside of it is breaking the paint up, to where the agents inside of the paint that makes it bond will be properly mixed up. And what I usually do is I'll hit it a little bit just to get the overspray kind of stuff out of it. And then I'll keep on shaking it up. And I mean, if you got a shaker like a professional shop, you can shake it up. Most people don't have it. You can do it by hand, which is easy. And you hear the sound of the marble moving, you know what you got. You got a way better thing going on. And then part two is when you have like this jam, you want to make sure you wipe that down adequately where it's gone. And then since it's like a harder, like ABS type plastic can come in, and you can also sand it if you want to paint it. As you can see, it scuffs up pretty nicely. Like a professional shop's a lot of stuff when you're doing bumpers, putting new bumpers on cars. Some of them you can just scuff with a red or gray scuff pad and they're ready to shoot. But primarily doing that, in most applications you're going to want to use a bonding agent like Bulldog or a different product. And for me, since I'm not a professional body shop, but I know how to do it, you can actually get Rust-Oleum in a can because you paint furniture with it, and it has a bonding agent in it. So if you're just spray painting something, furniture, or just say I'm just going to paint the grill itself, it would actually properly set up. And then the next part about spraying paint, since I'm outside, wind can be a factor, sunlight can be a factor. Sometimes you don't want the surface to get too hot, and you want to keep it clean, and you want to try to prevent anything that can blow into your paint area to prevent that from happening. So I'm using the phone. I don't have a tripod, and usually I don't do that because it's a little more effort and it's harder to get things done. But I believe I'm going to start doing YouTube a little bit different. I'm going to get me a body cam so I can do audio and video. So I'm going to show you how to apply this. And when you do it, you want to do it wet. And you want to follow through with your stroke. And here's an example of following through with your stroke. When you shoot it, you'll have a wet line. As you watch it, you'll have a wet line. It's just like using a spray gun. You just want to follow your wet line. And you don't want to put it on too thick because you want to give it a moment for it to dry. And as you watch, it's a wet line. And then like where the grill is, it's the same thing as a keystroke. How you move your hand back and forth. And then once you have your paint like that on, then you can move over to another area and do the same thing. And there'll be dust in it and different things. And sometimes you want to shake it a little bit just to keep it loose inside the can to paint. And you just kind of work it. It's a little tricky in the wind today, but this is how it's done right here. And as you watch it, you can see the paint is actually drying pretty fast since it's making the surface of the metal warm, and plus the wind. So I'll apply more primer as I go, and then try to keep it wet, because the wetter you keep it, it's going to get rid of having potential overspray and orange spill. And then on the body line, you can shoot it like this right here, and then you just kind of work it over and you just keep following through. And you don't want to rush it and go fast. And being outside, you can see that bug right there. That bug that's right there is not really helpful. If you're shooting a good paint job, you usually want to do it in a good area. But I'm just doing it as an example because I wanted to paint the old farm truck, get it back to looking all completely black. In a later day, I'm going to show some videos on how to do some patch panel repair work. So it's not too hard to spray paint, but you need to follow through. And as you follow through, some of it you can do differently, but you kind of want to apply your primer evenly if you're using a spray can, so you're not getting runs, and make it look good as you're going to get it, so you don't have dry spots, etc. in it. But this is just a rough way of doing it for some people that may not have a spray gun. They want to do body work. If you're a kid or an adult or have an old vehicle, it's a pretty easy way to go. It's kind of more costly than using a spray gun because you can usually get about a quart of paint at the same Rust-Oleum black for about $15. And I enjoy doing body work. I learned how to do it the old-fashioned way, like my dad, my uncles, and people just fix those rat rods and such up. So I'm gonna let this dry. but this is just what it looks like. And you can see the hood where it's blue. And doing a hood is a little trickier when you're doing this, because the bigger area, it tends to be some problems you're going to acquire in doing it. And the problem is going to be, it's very difficult to keep the paint wet when you use a spray can. But the trick ingredient to it is, you'll see impurities and stuff in the paint, and little rock chips and different things that could be sanded out, like right in here. And you can see different, like the rock chips, they're going to show. And the thing is, when you're applying black paint, there's old rules of thumb from body men that I've known that taught me how to do body work. And the old saying is if it's not right, paint it white. That's a good key ingredient. But there's another thing a lot of the old timers never told me, and there's a way that you can get past a lot of stuff, is avoid gloss. If you want to avoid gloss, that's not going to show your dents and all your any kind of paint chips or rock chips. A little bit less if it's flat or matte paint, because it doesn't have the shine of a patina. Because if you want that high shine gloss, it takes some serious effort to get your imperfections out of the surface you're working with. And upon doing that, the hardest part of doing body work is a few things. A lot of people that go to school, tech schools, vocational schools, and high school, I don't know what they teach in them, because I've never been to one, but 100% of body work are just about being a carpenter, body man, or cook, or anything. It's all about your prep. The better you do your prep, the better outcome you'll have in the process, as proper sanding, working out some of your chips and stuff. And I know body men that do paint vehicles, they want to do it a little faster because they're doing it by volume. And you can also, some people apply spot putty to little chips just to fill them in, so you're not sanding down the bare metal, and then you have your paint depth is different. Because if your paint, like in a chip like this, if you sand down the bare metal, what it will do initially is it'll have a circle in it, and when you paint it, you'll see it. And then some people, when they do that, they do different things. Some people will just, instead of going through a lot of that work, which is about $70 for, I believe, about roughly a half gallon, maybe a bit less, of acetone or aircraft stripper. And usually with the aircraft stripper, you can strip it all the way down to, you can strip the surface down to bare metal. And then the next point is, if there's any rust in it, you can use the proper media. Harbor Freight sells a cheap hopper sandblaster gun that's beautiful. It works perfect for doing small areas like the chips that you see. And when you do that, what you do is you sandblast with the correct media, where you're not making the surface have ripples in it, or like where it doesn't have any kind of holes or nothing, because it puts, like, when you use different media, rougher media, it puts teeny holes in it, and then you'd have to come back and fill it with primer. But if you use the proper media, what it's going to do, it's just going to remove the rust, and then you come back with a rag, put some acetone on a rag and wipe it down so it seals the metal and it kills all the possible potential rust in it. And then the next thing is, if you have the money, you can come in and initially use metal sealer. And another option is, if you don't have money to buy acetone, it's kind of expensive, buying at O'Reilly's or just different places. Another shade tree trick that I learned about body work is you can use rubbing alcohol. Or if you touch a bare surface with your hand on bare metal, it can cause rust because of the oil in your skin. But you can come back, as like I said, with either acetone or rubbing alcohol, and it'll remove that, or remove the oil. It's just a cheap, efficient way of doing it. And there's many ways that you can do body work, and a lot of people on YouTube I see doing body work. A lot of them are, for the most part, some of the people I've seen are very good. Some of them a little bit different. And when it starts coming into the prep work, where if you're doing patch panels, I see some people doing proper patch panels. I see some people doing shoddy work. But as you've seen in the other video, it's called a hand joggler. And what it does is, if you're doing a patch panel, you take it and you squeeze the metal, and then it fits flush. And when it fits flush, when you're applying your MIG weld, you can tack it, and then when you're sealing it up, you can do your puddle. And I've seen people try to put panels on using tape. I did that early on when I was like a kid. That's not really an efficient way of doing it. I mean, you can go on Amazon, and I'll post a video on it. I'll post a video shortly when I do the patch panels of using the magnets, how efficient the magnets are, because you can get a magnet to hold the panel on. But another thing, it's a little tricky for most people, is if you're not an experienced welder or have much time welding, is when you're applying a panel, what you want to do is, here's your MIG welder, and your other hand, you use a screwdriver to get it flush as you can as you're tacking it, and you kind of want to push it down. And there's other people on YouTube that are very big channels, they're more professional than I am. They've been doing body work longer than I have professionally, and I can tell you that some of the best guys on YouTube you're going to see is like Bad Chad, Sprayway Customs. That's some of the best people that I watch. Ian. And I watch a lot of people that has more talent and more time into the fabrication, and they have the tools and stuff. But over time, you can acquire your tools, and that's what I've been doing for many years. I bought a Harbor Freight stud gun, and I bought tools from Eastwood and different places. You can buy an orbital sander that's Craftsman or Skill at Walmart or Lowe's. Almost anywhere you can get a cheap one for roughly about 30 bucks to 40 bucks, and it really helps doing body work. And then if you have an air compressor and a hose, you can buy Orbital D8 at Harbor Freight for about 20 to 40 bucks. You probably even, I don't know if Walmart still sells them, but Walmart used to sell a line of tools as Campbell Holsfield, which is not bad. Air compressors, tools, etc. of stuff like impacts. But this is just a video of it. It's getting pretty long, and I'm sure the duration of people actually listen won't be very long, but this is just an informative video of doing body work. The old shade tree way spray bombing, whatever you want to call it, or makeshift painting. I mean, I built a 12 by 40 garage. It cost me $700, built it out of reclaimed material so I could paint. I ran the wiring myself, ran it through conduit. They ran the wiring through conduit in the ground from the electric meter, because I have a electric meter, and I hooked the external box up. It's a lot more going on than what you see in one video, because to do anything that I do, for me to do one thing, it requires me to usually do 5 or 10 or 20 things to do it. So it's kind of a trick. For $700 garage, I accumulated reclaimed materials, old trailer trusses. I bought a little tin. The thing that ate me up a little bit on the money wise was actually buying screws that has 2 wood stoves, 220 for a Lincoln 220 welder, and 110. And everything I do with less than anybody else is going to do it. It's because I don't want to have a clock-in job. I have had clock-in jobs and traded my time for money. It just doesn't seem to be efficient for me personally. And I know a lot of people have different circumstances where they don't have the financial means or a situation to do so. Well, I have a little bit of an income here and there in different ways, and I've done a lot of farm work, and I do little bits of body work and many different things for folks. But I'm going to wrap this up. If you followed me this far, just hit like and subscribe, ring that bell for future notifications. Sorry it's so long. I just want to touch base where people actually can understand and visibly see how to properly do something. So it's a little bit more about instruction than just blabbing about nothing. That is all. Have a wonderful weekend and what's left of it.